Amelia Carter adjusted her white nursing uniform, her hands trembling slightly as she stood in front of the grand elevator in one of New York's most luxurious buildings. The cool air in the marble-clad lobby did little to calm her nerves. At 28 years old, she was no stranger to challenges, but this opportunity felt like the biggest one yet. A chance to change her life and that of her 6-year-old daughter, Mia. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Amelia stepped in, her heart racing as the floor numbers lit up one by one. She rehearsed her introduction in her head, determined to make a good impression. The job wasn't just any nursing position. It was a private care role for Ethan Reid, a 35-year-old tech entrepreneur left in a vegetative state after a devastating helicopter accident. The salary was 3 times what she earned at her previous job in the public hospital. More importantly, the position came with a service apartment, freeing her from the constant fear of overdue rent notices. As the elevator reached the penthouse, Amelia tried to steady her breathing. The doors slid open to reveal a grand foyer, where a tall, stern woman with perfectly styled gray hair awaited her. Margaret Bennett, the housekeeper, greeted her with a nod of approval. "You're punctual. A good start," Margaret remarked, glancing at her wristwatch. "Follow me." The penthouse was nothing short of breathtaking, every corner adorned with priceless art and sleek furnishings. Amelia felt out of place in her modest sneakers, bought specifically for this occasion. Margaret led her to a set of double doors, pausing briefly. "As you were informed, Mr. Reid suffered a severe accident 8 months ago. He has been unresponsive since, but our job is to ensure he receives the best care possible." Amelia nodded, her professional instincts taking over, but inside, a flicker of anxiety mixed with curiosity. She knew this job would demand more than just her medical skills. It would test her resilience, her determination, and perhaps even her heart. Amelia followed Margaret through the penthouse halls, her sneakers making barely audible sounds against the gleaming marble floors. Every step she took brought her closer to the room where Ethan Reid lay, an enigmatic figure she had only read about in articles. The corridors were lined with paintings and sculptures that seemed to belong in a museum rather than a home. Finally, Margaret stopped in front of a pair of tall, dark wooden doors. She turned to Amelia, her voice firm yet calm. "Inside, you'll find Mr. Reid. As his caregiver, it's crucial you maintain strict schedules for medications and therapies. Everything you need is documented." Margaret pushed the doors open, and Amelia felt a tightness in her chest. The room was vast and tastefully decorated, though the presence of medical equipment transformed it into something that resembled an advanced ICU. In the center of the room was Ethan, lying motionless on a hospital bed. Amelia took a moment to process the sight before her. Despite the months he had spent unconscious, Ethan's chiseled features remained striking. His dark hair was slightly overgrown, and a faint stubble framed his face. It was as if he were merely sleeping. Margaret's voice interrupted Amelia's thoughts. "You'll work from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with a 2-hour break. On Sundays, you'll only have a half-day shift. Any questions?" "No, ma'am." "You can count on me," Amelia replied, her voice steady. Margaret nodded. "Good. You may familiarize yourself with the space. The service room is down the hall." Once Margaret left, Amelia approached Ethan cautiously. The rhythmic beeping of the monitors filled the silent room. She adjusted the IV lines and straightened the bed linens. Standing beside him, she spoke softly, unsure why she felt compelled to do so. "Good morning, Mr. Reid," she began. "My name is Amelia, and starting today, I'll be taking care of you." She didn't expect a response, but something deep inside told her he could hear her. It was an intuition she couldn't explain, a quiet voice urging her to connect with him as if he were fully aware. Amelia went about her tasks, tidying the room and humming softly. She mentioned the view outside the window and the warm sunlight filtering through the curtains. What she didn't realize was that a small figure had been watching her from behind the slightly ajar door. Mia, curious about her mother's new job, had managed to slip past the building's security. With wide eyes, she peered into the room, observing every movement her mother made. Amelia finished her morning duties and sat in the chair beside Ethan's bed, jotting down notes. She gently ran her fingers through his hair, whispering, "We'll do everything we can to make you comfortable." Just as she spoke, a faint sound in the hallway caught her attention. She turned sharply, but saw nothing. Mia, realizing she had almost been discovered, tiptoed away. It was only the beginning of the little girl's secret adventures in the penthouse. The days turned into weeks, and Amelia gradually found her rhythm caring for Ethan Reid. She followed the detailed schedules Margaret had given her, ensuring every procedure, medication, and therapy session was conducted with precision. Still, her instincts urged her to go beyond the routine, to speak to Ethan, engage with him, and treat him as more than a patient. One crisp morning, as sunlight streamed through the large windows, Amelia was adjusting Ethan's position in bed when she noticed a subtle twitch in his fingers. She froze, her heart racing. Could it have been a reflex, or was it something more? "Good morning, Mr. Reid," she said softly, leaning closer. "If you can hear me, just know that we're here for you." There was no response, but Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. She noted the movement in her log and resolved to pay even closer attention. Unknown to Amelia, Mia had continued her secret visits to the penthouse after school. The little girl had a natural curiosity and an unshakable belief that Ethan was a sleeping prince waiting to wake up. On one of these afternoons, Mia crept into the room while Amelia was occupied in the kitchen. "Hi, Mr. Prince," Mia whispered, climbing onto a chair near the bed. "Mom says you're very strong. I think you're just waiting for the right moment to wake up." Her innocent chatter filled the room with warmth. At one point, she placed her small hand on Ethan's, and for the briefest moment, his fingers twitched again. Mia's eyes widened in excitement, but before she could say anything, Amelia walked in. "Mia, what are you doing here?" Amelia's tone was firm, but not angry. "I just wanted to see Mr. Prince," Mia replied, her voice small. Amelia sighed, kneeling to Mia's level. "Sweetheart, this is my workplace. You can't be here without permission." "But Mom, he moved. His hand moved," Mia exclaimed, her face lighting up with conviction. Amelia hesitated. She had seen similar movements but hadn't dared to hope. After sending Mia home with a gentle warning, she returned to Ethan's side, her heart heavy with questions and possibilities. That evening, Margaret called Amelia into the kitchen. "You've been observing something, haven't you?" Margaret asked, her sharp eyes narrowing slightly. Amelia nodded hesitantly. "There have been small movements. I don't know if it's significant, but it feels like progress." Margaret smiled faintly. "You're not imagining things. I've noticed it too, especially since your daughter started sneaking in here." Amelia's cheeks flushed. "I'm so sorry, Margaret. I didn't realize she—" "No need to apologize," Margaret interrupted. "That little girl has brought an energy to this house that I haven't seen in years. Keep doing what you're doing, Amelia. Sometimes it's the things we can't measure that make the biggest difference." Amelia's growing optimism, however, soon clashed with Olivia Sinclair, Ethan's fiancée. Olivia's visits were rare, but her presence was always felt, like a cold wind sweeping through the penthouse. One afternoon, Olivia arrived unannounced, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. She paused in front of Ethan's room, her gaze landing on the colorful drawings Mia had taped to the wall. A rainbow, a smiling sun, and a portrait of Ethan labeled Mr. Prince. "Ethan, what is this?" Olivia snapped, turning to Amelia. "They're visual stimuli," Amelia explained calmly. "They can help with cognitive recovery." "Stimuli?" Olivia scoffed. "He's been in this state for months. These childish decorations won't change anything. Remove them." Amelia swallowed her frustration. "With all due respect, ma'am, I've noticed signs of improvement. Small movements, changes in his vitals." "Enough," Olivia interrupted, her tone icy. "You're here to provide basic care, not false hope. And one more thing, no more children in this house. This is not a daycare." Amelia felt her heart ache at the thought of Mia being banned from the penthouse. Before she could respond, Margaret appeared in the doorway. "Miss Sinclair," Margaret said with measured politeness, "the lawyer is waiting for you in the study." Olivia shot Amelia one last glare before striding away. Once she was gone, Amelia allowed herself a moment to breathe, her hands trembling slightly. Margaret stepped closer, her voice low. "Don't let her get to you. You're doing the right thing." Amelia nodded, grateful for the support, but knowing that the road ahead would only become more challenging. The tension in the penthouse had been mounting for weeks. Despite Olivia's harsh words and strict instructions, Amelia continued her work with quiet determination. Mia's visits, though rare now, remained a secret source of light in the otherwise clinical environment. One crisp autumn afternoon, Amelia was performing Ethan's routine physical therapy. She spoke softly as she moved his arms and legs, describing the bright colors of the leaves outside. "Mr. Reid," she said, her voice steady, "autumn is beautiful this year. Mia would call it magical. I think she sees the world differently. Everything is full of possibilities." As she adjusted his pillows, a small movement caught her eye. Ethan's fingers twitched, not the faint, reflexive motion she had seen before, but a clear and deliberate movement. Her heart raced. "Ethan," she said softly, stepping closer, "if you can hear me, try moving your hand again." Seconds passed, each one stretching into eternity. Then his fingers moved again, this time more distinctly. Tears filled Amelia's eyes. "You're in there," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're fighting your way back." That evening, Mia managed to sneak into the penthouse again. She carried a new drawing, a colorful picture of herself, Amelia, and Ethan in a park. "Look, Mr. Prince," Mia said, holding up the drawing at Ethan's eye level. "This is us when you wake up. There's a carousel, and we'll all go on it together." Amelia entered the room, her initial frustration melting when she saw Mia's innocent excitement. "Sweetheart, you know you can't be here." "Mom," Mia interrupted, her voice high with excitement. "He moved again, I saw it." Amelia's breath caught as she turned to Ethan. His fingers twitched once more. She knelt beside him, her voice firm but gentle. "Ethan, if you can hear us, try squeezing my hand." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, she felt the faintest pressure around her fingers. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Mia clapped her hands together, her face glowing with joy. "See, he's waking up. I told you, Mom." The next morning, Olivia made one of her rare appearances, her sharp heels clicking across the marble floor. She walked into Ethan's room, her expression as icy as ever, and immediately noticed the changes. "What are these new devices?" she demanded, pointing to the additional monitoring equipment Dr. Mitchell had quietly authorized. "They're part of Mr. Reid's recovery plan," Amelia replied calmly, masking the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "Recovery plan?" Olivia laughed coldly. "There is no recovery. You're deluding yourself, and worse, giving false hope to everyone else." Before Amelia could respond, Margaret appeared at the door. "Miss Sinclair," she said in a clipped tone, "there's a matter in the study requiring your attention." Olivia hesitated, her gaze narrowing. "I hope you're not encouraging this nonsense," she said to Amelia before sweeping out of the room. Amelia exhaled, her hands trembling. Margaret gave her a reassuring nod. "Keep documenting everything," she whispered. "Soon, the truth will speak for itself." 2 weeks later, on a quiet morning, Ethan reached another milestone. Amelia was adjusting his IV when she noticed his lips moving slightly. At first, she thought it was her imagination, but then she heard it faint and hoarse, but unmistakable. "Amelia." She froze, her heart pounding. "Ethan," she whispered, leaning closer. "Say it again." "Amelia," he repeated, his voice barely a whisper but filled with effort. Tears streamed down her face as she placed her hand on his. "I'm here," she said, her voice breaking. "I've always been here." When Mia came into the room later that day, Amelia told her the news. "Guess what, sweetheart? Mr. Prince said my name today." Mia's eyes widened with delight. "Does that mean he's going to wake up completely?" Amelia smiled, brushing Mia's hair back. "It means he's on his way." Ethan's progress had reached a pivotal moment. Weeks of dedicated care, coupled with Amelia's unwavering support and Mia's infectious energy, had led to a breakthrough no one dared dream of. One crisp morning, as sunlight streamed into the room, Amelia sat by Ethan's bed, reading softly from a book. Mia, as usual, was perched on a chair nearby, coloring a picture of a carousel she'd drawn for him. "Mr. Prince," Mia said brightly, holding up her drawing, "when you wake up, we'll ride this carousel together, okay?" Amelia smiled at her daughter's optimism, though her heart ached. She had seen Ethan's small movements and heard his first words, but she knew the road to full recovery was long. Then it happened. "Mama, look," Mia gasped, her voice trembling with excitement. "His eyes, they're moving." Amelia turned sharply toward Ethan, her heart pounding like a drum. His eyelids fluttered once, twice, and then, for the first time in over a year, his eyes opened. Her breath caught as tears blurred her vision. Though his gaze was unfocused, it held a glimmer of something she had prayed for every single day: awareness. "Ethan," Amelia whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. "Can you see us?" Mia climbed off her chair and stood beside Amelia, clutching her hand. "He's waking up. I knew it, Mom." Ethan's lips moved faintly, forming the word Amelia. "Yes, Ethan, I'm here," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. His gaze shifted slowly to Mia, who beamed with joy. "Mr. Prince, it's me, Mia. We've been waiting for you." Though weak, a faint smile tugged at Ethan's lips. The warmth of that moment filled the room, solidifying what Amelia had believed all along. Ethan Reid was coming back. While Ethan's recovery brought hope to the penthouse, tensions reached a boiling point when Margaret approached Amelia one evening, her expression grim. "I thought you should see this," Margaret said, handing Amelia a folder. Inside were documents showing Olivia's attempts to gain control of Ethan's assets. False signatures, unauthorized transfers, everything pointed to a calculated scheme to consolidate power while Ethan lay helpless. Amelia's hands trembled as she looked through the papers. "Does Ethan know?" she asked. "Not yet," Margaret replied. "But I've already informed Anthony, and the family lawyer is preparing a case. The truth is coming to light, Amelia. It's only a matter of time." The next day, Anthony, Ethan's father, arrived with the lawyer. Together, they presented the evidence to Ethan, who was seated in his wheelchair in the study. As he reviewed the documents, a mixture of sadness and resolve crossed Ethan's face. "She did this while I was lying in that bed," he said quietly, shaking his head. "She betrayed you, son," Anthony said, his voice heavy with anger. "You don't need to deal with her. Let us handle it." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, his breathing steadying as he processed the betrayal. When he opened them, his gaze was firm. "I won't see her," he said. "Let the lawyers deal with this. She's already taken enough of my time." 2 days later, Olivia arrived at the penthouse unannounced, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. She entered the living room, only to find Anthony and the lawyer waiting for her. "What's this?" Olivia demanded, her gaze darting to the stack of documents on the table. "We've uncovered your attempts to embezzle Ethan's assets," Anthony said coldly. "The lawyers will explain the rest." "You can't prove anything," Olivia said, her voice rising in desperation. Anthony's gaze hardened, his voice dropping to a chilling calm. "Oh, we can. Every fraudulent signature, every unauthorized transfer, it's all here. And Ethan, he knows everything, but he refuses to waste a second more on you. From now on, you answer to us." Olivia's face twisted in a mix of fury and desperation. She opened her mouth to retort but found herself at a loss. The weight of her actions was closing in, and for the first time, she realized there was no escape. Realizing she had lost, Olivia stormed out, her face a mask of fury and defeat. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Margaret, who had been observing quietly from a distance, turned to Anthony. "She won't give up easily," Margaret said. "She won't have a choice," Anthony replied. That weekend, Ethan surprised Amelia by requesting a small celebration in the garden. With Mia's help, they set up a picnic under the oak tree, the place that had become a symbol of new beginnings. As they laughed and shared stories, Mia climbed onto Ethan's lap, her arms wrapping around his neck. "I told you, Mr. Prince, you'd wake up. Now we can go to the carousel together." Ethan chuckled, the sound still a bit hoarse but filled with warmth. "Yes, Mia, I promised, didn't I?" Amelia watched them with tears in her eyes. When Ethan turned to her, his expression softened. "You've given me everything, Amelia. A second chance, a family, hope," he said. Amelia reached out, her hand resting over his. "We've done this together, Ethan, and we'll keep going, one step at a time." A few months after Ethan's recovery had reached a stable point, life in the penthouse had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Mia's laughter filled the space, and the bond between Ethan and Amelia had grown deeper with each passing day. One quiet evening, Ethan asked Amelia to join him in the garden. The air was cool, the sun just beginning to set, casting the sky in hues of orange and pink. "I thought we could watch the sunset together," Ethan said, his voice steady but carrying a hint of nervousness. Amelia smiled, taking a seat beside him under the sprawling oak tree that had become their favorite spot. "It's beautiful, Ethan. I love how peaceful it feels here." Ethan nodded, his hands resting on his lap. After a moment, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Amelia," he began, turning to face her. "When I was at my lowest, you were the light that guided me back. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You gave me hope, a family, and a reason to keep fighting." Amelia's breath caught as he opened the box, revealing a delicate diamond ring that sparkled in the fading sunlight. Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he opened the velvet box, revealing a delicate diamond ring that glinted softly in the fading light. "Amelia," he began, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions coursing through him. "Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" For a moment, Amelia could only stare, her mind racing through every moment that had led them here. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at the man who had once been a stranger in her care, now the very center of her world. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling. "1,000 times yes." Mia, who had been hiding behind a nearby bush, burst out with a loud cheer. "I knew it! I knew you were going to ask her." She threw her arms around both of them, her joy infectious. Both Ethan and Amelia burst into laughter, pulling Mia into a warm embrace.